Chapter 4. After Dulcie and Emma were back to New York, Mom nursed her bad mood for weeks. She refused to take me shopping for summer clothes, so I tagged along with Stacy and her mother. She wouldn't talk about the lake or give me any babysitting tips. She spent almost all her time working in the garden, down on her hands and knees, weeding till her knuckles bled, watering and fertilizing, rearranging plants, adding new ones, just to avoid me, I thought. Even Dad found it hard to be patient with her, especially after she changed her mind about driving me to the lake. If Dulcie wants Allie to babysit, she can pick her up and drive her to Maine herself, she told him. He stared at her. But Claire, what about our plans to spend a few days on the coast? I can't leave the flowers. They'll dry up. The weeds will take over. Mom folded her arms tightly across her chest, her face taut with anxiety. Dad's frown deepened. You realize that coming all the way down here to get Allie will add hours to Dulcie's trip. Mom shrugged. It was Dulcie's idea to take Allie to the lake. Let her figure it out. She can always find another babysitter. Close to tears, I glared at Mom. You're still trying to keep me from going, aren't you? Why don't you just put me on a leash and tie me to a tree in the backyard? My outburst surprised Dad, but Mom nodded her head angrily. You should have been Dulcie's daughter. You are more like her every day. Good. Maybe I won't grow up scared of everything, afraid to have fun, ruining everybody else's fun. Too upset to reply, Mom ended the conversation by leaving the room. Dad grabbed my shoulders and gave me a little shake, more to get my attention than anything else. Don't talk to your mother like that. Can't you see you're hurting her? I wanted to say Mom was hurting me, but Dad had already followed her out of the room. She's not having a nervous breakdown, I shouted silently. She's just crying because she can't think of anything else to do. I sighed and grabbed an apple from the bowl on the counter. Living in this house is good practice for crossing a minefield. If you weren't careful, you could set off explosions with every step you took. While I ate my apple, I stared out the kitchen window at the neighbor's dog, tied to his tree. He lay in the dirt, his nose on his paws. Totally bored, I was sure, but safe. The day I left, Mom refused to get out of bed, claiming she had a migraine, the worst she'd ever had in over a year. Dad pulled the blinds to darken the room and sat with her for a while, reading a book as she dozed, another way to avoid talking. When Dulcie arrived, Mom didn't feel well enough to see her, so we said our goodbyes in her bedroom. You don't have to stay at the lake if you're unhappy or homesick, she whispered. If anything scares you or worries you, call us. Your father will come get you. Don't worry, everything will be fine, I assured her. Mom squeezed my hand. I know you think I'm too protective, she said, but I want to keep you safe. You're so young. You don't know the terrible things that can happen, how quickly one's life can change. What do you mean? She closed her eyes. My head hurts. I can't talk anymore. I leaned over and kissed her gently. I'll be careful in the water, I promised, and I'll take good care of Emma. Please don't worry. I love you and I'll miss you. Keeping her eyes closed, Mom said, I love you too. On the way downstairs, I asked Dad if the migraine was my fault. Of course not, he said. It's tension, anxiety. Then it is my fault. I caused the tension and anxiety, didn't I? I pushed the guilty thought away. Mom often had migraines. I couldn't be blamed for all of them. Maybe this one, though. Moments later, Emma was hugging me, squealing with delight, and Dulcie was assuring Dad she'd drive carefully and keep a close eye on me all summer. Dad wedged my suitcase and bag of books into the van. I belted myself in the front seat, and Dulcie secured Emma in the back seat. As I waved goodbye to Dad, I thought I saw a hand raised and blind in my parents' bedroom. Mom must have felt well enough to watch her sister take me away for the summer. The ride to Maine seemed to last forever, one boring interstate after another, dodging trucks, passing cars and motorcycles, stopping a couple times at fast food places for hamburgers and fries. Not what she usually ate, Dulcie assured me, but the quickest way to fill our stomachs. Late in the afternoon, we left the last interstate and followed a network of roads, each narrower and more winding than the one before. Emma leaned over the seat, Are we almost there? Dulcie nodded. See that tree? The one with the long limb like a trunk sticking out over the road? Claire and I called it the elephant tree. We'll be at the cottage soon. A few minutes later, Dulcie slowed down and pointed out a little white store by the side of the road. Its windows were boarded up, and a weather-beaten sign over the door said Olson's. Weeds grew in the parking lot, and a row of seagulls perched on the roof. Claire and I used to ride our bikes all this way for some homemade ice cream. The best chocolate I ever tasted. Dulcie sighed. Too bad it's closed. Soon after, she said, It's the next left, just past that patch in the asphalt that looks like a bear, see? There's the sign for Gold Cottage. She pointed at a neatly lettered, arrow-shaped board nailed to a tree. Below it was a mailbox, its door down, empty. Dulcie turned onto a one-lane dirt road, and we headed into the woods. The setting sun shot golden beams through the trees, but the light was dim and greenish, almost as if we were underwater. We rounded a curve, and there it was, a small cottage sheltered by tall trees. The clapboards had a fresh coat of blue paint, and the steep roof was newly shingled. The lake itself was down a flight of wooden steps. I could see a dock and a small building beside it. Beyond a curve of sandy beach was the water, dark in the early evening light, stretching out to the horizon. It looks almost exactly the same, Dulcie said. Joe did a great job. With Emma close behind, I followed Dulcie across the deck and through the back door. I don't know exactly what I had expected. Cobwebs and dust, stale air, maybe a gloomy, spooky atmosphere. But the cottage was bright and airy. Blue-checked curtains hung at the kitchen windows, and the cabinets had been painted a sunny yellow, the walls pale blue, the table and chairs bright blue. The stove and refrigerator were brand new, dazzling white. The old ones were antiques, Dulcie said. Plus, they didn't work. She led us into the living room, which was furnished with a pair of soft armchairs and a matching sofa, sagging beneath faded, flowered slipcovers. A big stone fireplace took up one whole wall, and windows with a view of the lake took up another wall. Shelves full of books and board games covered the third wall from floor to ceiling. The cottage was filthy when I saw it in April, Dulcie said. Joe hired a cleaning crew to scrub and vacuum. They got rid of spiders, squirrels, mice, and a family of raccoons living under the deck. But they didn't hurt them, did they? Emma asked, her voice full of concern. Of course not, sweetie. They caught the mice and squirrels and raccoons in the have-a-heart traps and let them go in a nice part of the woods, and they picked up the spiders very gently in tissue and carried them outside. That's good. Emma looked pleased. If they come back, they can sleep in my room. I won't mind. Dropping her suitcases at the foot of a narrow flight of steps, Dulcie pointed down the hall. 2 bedrooms, one for Emma and one for me, plus a brand new bathroom. My room was upstairs, tucked snugly under the eaves. A faded patchwork quilt in shades of blue, yellow, and green calico covered the double bed. Its iron frame had been painted white to match an old dresser and a table and a chair, as well as built-in shelves, already holding books and toys. Fresh muslin curtains hung at the windows, and a rag rug covered most of the floor. This was your mom's and my room when we were kids, Dulcie said. Same wallpaper, same furniture. She picked up a conch shell lying on the burrow and turned it slowly, studying its shape and colors before putting it back. Our mother left everything here. I guess she thought we'd come back one summer, but we never did. Her voice had dropped so low I barely understood what she'd said. Why didn't you come back? I asked. Did something happen? Dulcie stared at me. Of course nothing happened. Whatever gave you that idea? Mom, I guess. The way she talks about the lake like it's a scary place. Suddenly embarrassed, I picked up the shell Dulcie had been looking at. This is really pretty. Let me see. Emma reached for the shell and I handed it to her. She held it as carefully as if it were made of glass and pressed it to her ear. I hear the ocean, she whispered. Dulcie looked at me over Emma's head. Everything scares Claire, she said. Deep water, high places, low places, inside, outside, upside, downside. Even though I'd often thought the same thing, Dulcie's tone of voice stung. Mom was lying in bed at home, sick in pain, while I traveled all this way without her. She can't help it. She worries, that's all. Dulcie shrugged. To answer your question, I guess we didn't come back because we got tired of coming here. For kids, there's not a whole lot to do. We spent our summers traveling instead. Yellowstone, the Grand Canyon, Yosemite, Niagara Falls, the Canadian Rockies. She laughed. Dad did a lot of driving in those years. Emma picked up one of a pair of teddy bears sitting in a small rocking chair. He looks just like Mr. Bear, she said. He belonged to Claire, Dulcie said, and that's just what she called him, Mr. Bear. That's the bear's name in The Lonely Doll. Mr. Bear and Little Bear, the friends Edith wished so hard for. Emma hugged the bear. If I wish hard enough, will a friend come? Dulcie leaned down to kiss Emma's cheek. Just wait till you start kindergarten in the fall. You'll have so many friends, you won't have to wish. She smoothed her daughter's silky hair back from her face, tucking it behind her ears. Does Mr. Bear belong to you now? Emma asked me. You can have him, I told her. I think he likes you best of all. Emma grinned and hugged the bear. And you can have the other one. He was mine. Dulcie picked up the bear, a sad companion of Mom's. His fur was almost worn off. Stuffing leaked from one paw and he was missing an eye. Poor old thing, Dulcie said. Claire took good care of her toys, but I was rough on everything. Toys, clothes, books, even people. She sighed and gave the bear a hug. His name is Rufus M., after the little boy in the Muffet family books. Dropping the bear on the foot of the bed, she stretched. I guess it's time to start dinner. Chapter 5. When Dulcie was gone, Emma sat on the bed and watched me put my things into the bureau drawers. Is Aunt Claire mad at Mommy? She asked. Is that why she didn't come down to see us before we left? I shook my head. My mom gets awful headaches, I told Emma. They're called migraines. When she has a really bad one, she stays in bed and doesn't talk to anyone. Poor Aunt Claire, Emma stroked Mr. Bear's fur. I'll make her a get well card tomorrow. It'll be from me and Mr. Bear. Would she like that? I grinned. She'd love a card, especially from you. Emma looked at me thoughtfully. Aunt Claire doesn't like the lake, does she? She almost didn't let you come with me and Mommy. I opened the casement window and leaned out to look at the water. The evening star hung low in the sky, kept company by a half moon, but it was still light enough to make out the horizon, a dark line against the fading pink of the sunset. My mom's scared of water, I said. I've never seen her go swimming, not once, even when she took me to the pool for lessons. She sat on the grass and watched me. All the other mothers were in the water with their kids, but not my mother. Beside me, Emma shuddered. Maybe she thinks she'll drown. She doesn't want her bones to come out. I looked at her. What are you talking about? Bones are inside us. You and me and Mommy and everybody. When we die, they come out. And then we're ghosts. Where did you get that idea? I saw pictures in Mommy's drawing books. She said they are skeletons. We all have them inside until we die, and then... Emma hugged Mr. Bear. He doesn't have bones, just stuffing, and he's not alive, so he can't die or be a ghost. There's no such thing as ghosts. Emma turned her hands this way and that, as if observing the movement of the bones under her skin. How do you know? Maybe you just haven't seen one. Don't be a silly Billy. I forced myself to laugh. Of course I haven't seen a ghost, and neither have you. I've seen one in my dreams. Emma spoke so softly I had to lean down to hear her. The ghost is very sad and lonely. She wants to go home, but she's down deep, deep, deep in the water. She's been there so long, she's just bones. No one knows where she is. Emma's whispery voice made my skin race with goosebumps. I pulled her small body close to mine and hugged her. Mr. Bear's fur tickled my nose. That's very scary, I told her, but it's just a bad dream. Everybody has them. Emma peered into my eyes. Do you? I thought about tea. I hadn't dreamt about her for weeks, until last night. I must have been worried about coming to the lake, leaving Mom, all that. I hoped I wouldn't dream about her now that I was actually here. Not very often, I fibbed to keep from alarming Emma. While we'd been talking, the room had darkened. Shadows gathered in the corners, and a cool breeze fluttered the curtains. Somewhere outside, a bird cried once, twice, 3 times. I took Emma's hand and led her down the stairs. Let's go see what your mom's doing. In the brightly lit kitchen, Emma ran to Dulcie. Mr. Bear wants dinner, she said, waving him at her mother. He's hungry. Dulcie gave her a kiss. It's almost ready. Why don't you and Allie set the table? The forks and knives and spoons are in that drawer. She pointed to the cabinet by the sink, and Emma began counting out the utensils, 4 of each. There's only 3 of us, I said. You forgot Mr. Bear! Emma sat the teddy in the extra chair and laid a fork, knife, and spoon in front of him. I laughed a little louder than I'd meant to, in relief, I guess, that Mr. Bear was joining us. Not the ghost from Emma's dream. Dulcie brought over a big yellow bowl of spaghetti and set it down in the middle of the table. The sauce isn't as good as my ex-mother-in-law's, she said, but it's not bad with plenty of Parmesan sprinkled on top. She tucked a napkin around Emma's neck and served us each a heaping portion. Don't forget Mr. Bear, Emma said. He hasn't had anything to eat for years and years and years. Dulcie put a small amount on a saucer and set it in front of the bear. Eat up, she told him. I don't like bears who waste food. After dinner, Dulcie lit a fire. Emma and I sprawled on the rug and roasted marshmallows. I let mine turn black on the outsides and sucked the gooey white insides into my mouth. Yum. Said Emma. She liked hers barely toasted, but Dulcie burned hers even blacker than mine. We washed the marshmallows down with hot chocolate, then lay still and watched the flames devour the logs. Our faces felt warm, but our feet were cold. On the sofa, Dulcie sighed happily and stretched her long legs toward the fire. I'd forgotten how chilly Maine gets at night, she said. We'll need extra blankets and cozy flannel jammies. Emma yawned and rubbed her eyes. Looks like someone's ready for bed. Dulcie scooped her up and gave her a hug. Let's go, sleepyhead. You come too. Emma stretched her arm toward me. And bring Mr. Bear. He's scared of the dark. Carrying the bear, I followed Dulcie and Emma to the small room at the back of the cottage. As soon as Emma was ready for bed, she found the lonely doll and handed it to Dulcie. Read this one. But I read that book last night, and the night before, and the night before that. It's my favorite, Emma insisted. She climbed into bed and tucked the bear under the covers beside her. I bet Allie wants to hear it, don't you? Sure. I stretched out on the bed beside Emma and listened to Dulcie begin the story. After she'd read a few pages, Emma interrupted her. It's so dark outside my window. Why aren't there any lights or any people? I don't even hear any cars. We're out in the country now, Em, where it's peaceful and quiet. Will you pull down the shade so I don't have to see the dark? Ghosts could be out there watching me. Before Dulcie could move, I jumped up and shut out the night with a few yanks on the blinds. Emma was right. It was dark out there. Very dark. No lights anywhere. No sounds but the lapping of the lake against the shore and the wind in the treetops. The cottage was spooky at night. Dark, full of shadows. Not at all the way it was in the daytime. There, I said. Is that better? I guess so. Emma's voice was low, almost a whisper. She held Mr. Bear tightly. Read, Mommy. Dulcie read 3 Lonely Dolls books, as well as The Cat in the Hat, The Cat in the Hat Comes Back, Horton Hatches the Egg, and The Owl and the Pussycat. But it was Goodnight Moon that finally lulled Emma to sleep. Leaving a nightlight glowing, Dulcie tiptoed out of the room, and I followed. She closed the door softly and leaned against it for a moment. Let's hope Emma adjusts to nights in the wilderness quickly, she said. I could barely stay awake to read those books. She yawned and gave me a hug. I'm beat from all that driving, Allie. I'm going to put out the fire and get into bed. More tired than I had realized, I climbed the stairs to my room, trying to ignore the darkness beyond the bedside lamp. I snuggled under great-grandmother's quilt and opened To Kill a Mockingbird, #1 on my school summer reading list. I'd seen the movie, but I'd never read the novel. Dad said the book was even better than the movie, but Mom said nothing could beat Gregory Peck as Atticus Finch. My bed faced the casement windows, slightly open to the cool night air. Through the pine branches, I could see the moon tipped into a crooked smile. Insects chirped, an owl hooted, the pines sighed in the breeze, and the lake washed against the shore. With Rufus M. tucked in beside me, I tried to read, but after half an hour, I gave up. It wasn't the book. I loved the story, and I loved the way Harper Lee wrote. I simply couldn't stay awake another second. I closed my eyes, expecting to fall asleep immediately, but the moon shone in my face. In the woods, the orchestra of insects chirped and thrummed and buzzed louder and louder. I found myself thinking of Mom and Dulcie, sharing this bed when they were younger than I was. Had they talked and giggled together, or had they quarreled the way they did now? I hugged Rufus. "If you could talk, you'd tell me," I whispered to the old bear. "You were there." His glass eye glittered in the moonlight, giving him a slightly wicked look. But if the bear knew anything about those long-ago summers, he wasn't telling. Like Mom and